Hello, welcome to Generally Speaking. Today is June 27th, 2026. So if you're watching this some days later, weeks later, months later, you're watching old news. And I generally pass on old news, but hey, maybe you just like seeing me. So let's get started. What do we got first? Slush fund. You've probably heard of the slush fund deal that Trump made with the Department of Justice, saying, well, okay, I'll settle if you give me some money. What kind of a settlement is that? I'll settle if you give me money. I won't try to get more money. So, at any rate, big fight over that. What we don't know about or don't hear about is another slush fund that Trump has with Venezuela and the oil that he's extracting from them. He kidnapped Maduro, and now he sets the terms on the oil flow coming out. And believe me, there are very favorable terms for Trump in particular, with him skimming off whatever percentage of that money he feels like, with nobody saying otherwise. And it's a deal that is just too good for the Venezuelans to pass up. Too good. A deal you can't refuse. Yes, it's a good deal for Trump. All right, listen, if you liked me so far, hit the like, subscribe, and notify. Seems like my statistics, people don't get too far into my videos, so I hope you like that one. Let me try and give you one other one. All right, messing with the money. Trump, his ballroom project, which was supposed to be completely funded by private enterprise people just wanting to give him money, corporations, of course, quid pro quo, we'll give you money for your ballroom, and, you take care of us later. But now he's trying to, bring in taxpayer money, actually, and, of course, there's getting pushback. So what did he do? An immigration enforcement bill was coming around, and he tried to slip $1 billion into it that was going to be used for his ballroom project, try to hide it inside an immigration enforcement bill. All right, well, nothing new there. All right, Trump again, what did he do? He canceled the housing bill. This was a bipartisan bill, to try address the housing crisis, unaffordable housing, not enough housing, and it was going up to for approval. It's going to be approved by the Congress, and Trump put his foot down and said, "No, we're not going to do that until you guys vote on my voting regulations, things such as stopping mail-in voting and reducing times that the votes can be counted, and all sorts of other things meant to hinder Democratic votes." And he said, "No, forget this housing project bill. Until you do the voting bills first." Yes, because nothing comes first like Trump. All right, the memorandum of understanding, the supposed ceasefire kind of deal with Iran, that's just falling apart after a ship tried to sneak through the Strait of Hormuz when Iran has control over it, and said in the memorandum of understanding that we have control. So they smacked the ship, sent a missile at it, and the United States decided that's a violation. So they hit some radar installations on the shores of Iran that tracked these ship movements, and so Iran retaliated by attacking bases in Bahrain, which I'm a little surprised, really, because I was under the understanding that the bases in Bahrain had already been, totally decimated. If you ask me, if Iran's going to attack anything, they should attack the places where U.S. and Israeli forces, continue to launch from against them. But at any rate, the fight's back on. Sort of. We'll see how far it goes. Iran shows a lot of restraint, and I suppose partly it's because they don't like getting bombed. They'd rather not have their people be bombed, their infrastructure destroyed. So they just don't go all out. The part of the deal was that Lebanon wouldn't be attacked by Israel anymore. Israel just keeps attacking, and still Iran holds back. Iran continues to hold back. So we'll see how far this escalation goes. Iran seems to play more of a tit-for-tat game. You do this, I do that, and then I stop, and we see what happens next. All right, French delegates to the European Union are trying to lay groundworks for attacking Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, one of the triumvirates, the three, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, that form the Organization of Sahel States. They joined together. They're in West Africa, and they formed an organization. And so the French were in there, colonial times, and they're still trying to mess with it. And I was watching a production by someone who does African events, politics, and he was showing how the groundwork is being laid with speakers in front of the European Union, a French person in particular, who had previous involvement in Burkina Faso as a military person, saying that, yeah, things are going terrible there. It's really everything's being disrupted, and the government's losing control, and this is a threat. It's a threat to whom? To the European Union somehow. All right, so why are they even getting involved? Because there's huge uranium and gold deposits in that country. So if anything tells the tale, there you go. That's it. All right, SCOTUS has rejected a Rastafarian religious rights request. SCOTUS all about religious freedoms, mostly if it pertains to Christians only. This Rastafarian, they don't believe in getting your hair cut. That's part of their religion. A lot of religions have silly things, if you ask me. That's one of them. And he was being in prison, and they just said, no, we're cutting your hair, like it or not. So he brought a case to the Supreme Court, said, they're not allowed to do that. I guess he can go another 20 years growing his hair back if he wins. But they said, no, Rastafarians, that doesn't count. Only Christian people count. Rastafarians don't. In fact, probably nobody else counts. That's the Supreme Court. They're not serious. And this word I keep forgetting. When they go about their claims, their arguments, or they say this, that, or the other thing. No, it's just they want their way. That's all. And the arguments they present are just a bunch of nonsense, just to say, well, look, I said some words justifying what I'm doing. All right, someone was talking about elections and this thing called ranked choice voting. I think it's a great deal. It's where all the candidates that are running for a party, Republican or Democrat, independent, whoever, they all are on the ballot and they all get picked. And they get picked not just in terms of, I want this one, but you get to pick your first choice, second choice, and third choice. And if nobody gets a certain amount of votes from that you wanted, then they all go to the second choice. And if nobody gets it there, it goes to third choice. And people just keep getting eliminated until the only one left is the one that most people ended up voting for. And it's really a good thing. And most states have done it. And I think they should start doing that more often. But the dual party system doesn't like it. Apparently they didn't like it. They weren't able to fight it enough because some states do that. All right, Mamdani candidates win elections. Mamdani supported 3 people in New York State, and they all won. And the centrist Democrats are all going crazy. They're losing their minds. This is communists is taking over. This is not where the Democratic Party wants to go. And meanwhile, commenters are saying, listen, it's not up to you to say where the party goes. It's up to the people who do the electing. They're the ones who say. All right, Iran. There was a pilot shot down in Iran. It's an interesting story about the pilot. Like, number one, he was rescued, but you never hear the name of who he was. You never see any images of him. Nobody's ever seen this fellow. So you almost wonder if the story's even real. At any rate, apparently, he claims to have seen a jellyfish drone formation. So, a bunch of drones all flying around and this shape of kind of a jellyfish, I guess with a bunch of them near a crown at the top and others trailing down at the bottom. And so some people were saying, who's good at that? Who can do those kind of things with drones? And China is the first one that comes up. If you've seen any TikTok videos, they'll have hundreds of drones flying in the air, and they do all these beautiful displays. The dragons and the tigers and the all kinds of shows. The beautiful things. So saying that perhaps Iran is getting technology from China. Well, of course they're getting technology from China and from Russia. They're getting information. Tactical information about the battlefield from China. So that wouldn't be anything surprising in itself. Another story that I didn't mention is what Iran's getting from Pakistan in particular. And what's that? AI information is used. AI sources are used to try and track people with their whereabouts, comings and goings, using all kinds of communications information. And that is very useful for one country to try and take out the politicians, the heads of state, whoever in another country. Well, apparently Pakistan has developed a way to counter this. And this is one reason, at least somebody was saying, one of the people I'm watching, why there are no more assassinations going on in Iran. And I got to say, I never thought of Pakistan, though. In fact, I never thought much of Pakistan, and I guess I was reminded in this article that, hey, they developed their own atomic bomb. These people are on the ball. Developing atomic bombs is not easy stuff to do. And they did it. Apparently they have this technology for blocking attempts at tracking individuals, cyber warfare like. So, wow, I got to raise my opinion of Pakistan. What else? Prairie Land protesters. Prairie Land, that's a place in Texas. And these protesters were protesting ICE. And they were only loosely connected about there's going to be an event, come to the event. And so several of them went there. They were going to shoot fireworks off to get attention. And one of them, however, carried a rifle and ended up breaking off. Several of them, protesters broke off and did some damage to cars and some property. But one of them took his rifle, who was away from everyone else. He saw an officer of the law come, and the officer drawing his gun. So he shot his gun allegedly at the ground, and it ricocheted and hit the police officer. At any rate, these people were all taken to court. And they were given like outrageous sentences, 50 plus years, life sentence, 100 plus years, 100 years. That's like a life sentence, if you ask me. And so it's outrageous. The administration going to these extents, giving these people for just protesting. Okay, one of them shot a gun. All right, so do something to that one. The other people weren't doing anything like that. And they get these 50 to 100-year sentences. And meanwhile, the January 6 people who, attacked so many police officers and broke into the Capitol, tried to sue them, they get what? They get pardons. And they even get an effort at trying to give them money for the times that they got, detained and were put in jail for a while. Try to give them money. But on these protesters protesting ICE, they're getting 100-year sentences. So I mean, it's just where your attitudes are. It's not like fair justice. This is one person just taking out his animosities on somebody else. All right. Speaking about federal judges, one of them threw out 6 Department of Justice grand jury subpoenas as being nothing but vindictive prosecution. Very often this idea that the judges assume Department of Justice, the federal government, is being up and up when they bring claims of we need to prosecute somebody. That belief is just no longer existing. Now the judges are realizing there's nothing to be trusted by the Department of Justice, the Trump's Department of Justice. And this federal judge threw out these subpoenas as you're just going after people you don't like. You really had nothing here to present to me why we should go after these people. And that is exactly what this Department of Justice is doing. So that's that story. By the way, if you're here this long, congratulations. You've beat most people so far. Hope you give me a like, subscribe, and notify. All right, in Texas, a judge has been rewarded for refusing to perform a marriage ceremony to a gay couple. So they sued. The judge wouldn't do it just because he doesn't think gay people should get married, and he went to court and he won the case and he got $10,000 for that. But even on top of that, he got $640,000 to cover legal fees. Now, I'm upset just the fact that this judge was allowed to deny the marriage certificate, number one, and that he got awarded $10,000. But what's even more upsetting, really, is that court costs were $640,000. There's these ideas that these lawyers can charge mega millions of dollars when, ordinary schmooze down at the bottom, they can't afford any of that, and they get screwed. You got these things called public prosecutors, but for you, if you can't afford one, a lawyer will be, paid for you. But that's not under all circumstances. This high cost of lawyering, it's ridiculous. It's just obscene. And are you going to try and change it? It's going to have to go through the courts. You think the lawyers are going to support that? I don't think so. All right, back in Texas again. The school boards there has mandated now that Bible reading has to happen in school. These are the Christian crazy people. I'm not saying all Christians are crazy. A lot of Christians are normal, good people. They don't believe something that's so great, because any God that, designates eternal hell for just not believing, it's the same as ISIS saying, believe in us or we'll cut your head off. The Christians get upset about that left and right. But the fact that you can get something worse than your head cut off, your head cut off, boom, once, it's over, you're done. Hell is eternal, and they don't get that. But Texas is now saying you've got to read about this Bible in school. These guys, these are the fanatics, the crazy people. And we got to keep finding out. Texas is a bad state. It's not the only one, but I put it up near the worst. All right, Peter Thiel. He's the head of Palantir, rich guy, got his fingers in the upper crust of society and the political machine. He oversees, perhaps is the head of a secret society called Dialogue. Now, it's not so secret. I mean, it's out here in the news. I just read about it. But this is another one of the several secret societies that run around, talking amongst themselves about how we need to manipulate the world. And what do I want to say about it? Just mentioning, secret societies. They're out there. And I guess we already know, the oligarchs, they're the ones that pull all the strings. And there's just another sample of it. Well, if you made it this far, you're probably the only one. Give me a comment. Say, I made it. Yeah, I did, guy. Good show. And I hope you watch this again. Thank you for watching, and take care.